A lot of alarm here in South Korea, very similar situation to what Terry was describing about Japan there, with the markets dropping in the morning, the government talking about the potential harm. That committee that Han Duck-soo oversaw, they are now talking about emergency measures for companies, so some sort of financial support to get them through this situation, but also talking about sort of examining what has actually happened, ways to diversify, and ways to negotiate to try and get out of this situation. But, all the economists I've spoken to and the analysts at the moment saying, it's very clear at the moment that the US and Trump is not in a negotiating mood. And we even saw the statement from officials in the US in an online statement after Trump made the announcement, saying that right now the focus will be on implementing the tariff regime and not on negotiation. So of course, we already know there's going to be a big hit on the auto sector here and on parts combined. They represent more than $44 billion in exports a year, so around 2% of South Korea's GDP. South Korea is the third largest exporter of automobiles to the United States after Japan and Mexico. So a big hit in that sector, but also, General Motors is in there because GM has two plants here. They represent about a third of exports to the United States. So everybody, no one I've spoken to has a different opinion other than General Motors here will fold unless those tariffs are reversed. So it'll lead to 11,000 job losses here, but it'll also be a big blow to a major American car maker abroad. Hyundai, of course, 2 days before the tariff, talked about a new $21 billion investment on top of the 3 production plants it has in the US, but Trump turned around and said, well, this is proof that tariffs worked, and clearly Hyundai had been hoping it was perhaps a concession that would get an easier deal for South Korea. So there's a lot of confusion about how to go forward at the moment, especially because 25% tariffs now apply to all goods. A little bit of good news is the wrong term, but less awful news is the new tariffs won't be stacked on top of the existing ones. So car tariffs and steel and aluminum or aluminium, they will remain at 25%. But South Korea really reeling from this news, given that more than 18% of all of its exports go to the United States. So this will clearly have a big impact. And on top of all of this, we have the political paralysis. The impeachment ruling will come this Friday, but if President Yoon is reinstated as president, there will be more demonstrations on the street. And if he is impeached, there will be counter demonstrations from the other camp, and 2 months before elections. So a big political, an economic blow, and it'll be months before we really have any sort of stability in the political process here, so that the government can really come up with some forward-looking plan to try and deal with this.